Hi, Sha-En. Welcome to Getting Naked with Happiness.
Hello, hi. Thank you for having me.
How will you share yourself or introduce yourself to briefly, just in this context?
Well, I'm the founder of Happiness Scientists. I'm super passionate about well-being and positive psychology. And I guess with the name Happiness Scientists, it implies using the science and research of positive psychology to inform practices, empower people and organizations, companies to be happier and thrive. Um, and I guess in the context of the world that we're living now, I realized that this message has become so much more important. So yeah, I'm very excited to be doing this work. Every day I wake up and still feel very excited that I get to do this kind of meaningful and engaging work. Yeah, I'm also a mom of two. So two girls, one's 11, the other one's going to be 6. And just having them in my life reminds me that the work that I do continues to be super important.
Lovely. I like the way when you say happiness scientists, is there a story behind happiness scientists?
I did my master's in positive psychology in 2010. And ever since then, I set myself a goal, I suppose, a personal goal, and that is whatever I study and whatever I read, I will attempt to apply personally, because that is the easiest way to validate whether the research works. Some people may say it's the hardest way to validate because some of the things are really hard to do. Yes, it makes you happy over the long run, but you have to keep at it and you need to form a habit. And so the term happiness scientist is really my take on this journey that I've had. It's like an experiment that I'm putting myself through by taking that science and applying it and gauging for myself, well, does it work for me? If it does, which part of it worked for me? And I kind of break it down and analyze as I reflect every day and everything that I try. And I realize some things work, some things don't work. So when I do my work and I share it with people and they tell me, I tried doing this and it didn't work, I can at least ask them, so what didn't work? Tell me more. And when they share with me, I legitimately understand why it doesn't work. Because I also probably experienced the same challenge. Or if it worked for me and I'm just curious to know why it didn't work for them. So I guess, happiness scientist to me is a combination of that. It is a science, it's an experimentation, it's the way I've been living my life. And it's not that I want to be happy, I think I'm already am. Is that it's not exactly this, how to say, it's not like an end pursuit, you know what I mean? But it's kind of like a journey. And a scientist doesn't know what's the outcome and what the result's going to be, right? We just hope and we have a hypothesis. Yeah. So I think it captures nicely this journey and the experimentation that I've been on.
Yeah, I like the part because what you say totally like put me to the front of like scientists, happiness scientists. It seems like an alchemist, right? They will try to distill and look at different concoctions of what makes a person happy, and in the process, you are testing upon yourself, right? To see what works for you. And if you talk about happiness, I believe that you came across in your work and exposure about what are some of the misconception of happiness or the myth of happiness.
Yeah, I think one is the one that I just mentioned, that many people think that happiness is the goal, that we should be pursuing it. And I thought at first that it was that as well. And after pursuing it for so many years, I realized it is not a pursuit. And actually, the more you pursue it, the more it seems to elude you. I get this question very often, why is happiness so elusive? And I think the straightforward answer is that, well, if you make it a goal, then with a goal comes expectations. With expectations come disappointments. And you make a lot of assumptions. If happiness is a goal that you want to attain, then what happens if you reach there? Is there nothing left in your life aside from that? So I find that that's a huge myth, and that's what a lot of people presume it should be. So now I look at it that happiness is a personal journey for all of us, and that journey looks different for all of us, right? So even in the context of what should we do to make ourselves happy, there are some things that work for many people, but then even amongst that, we need to understand ourselves well. We need to understand the context and the culture that we're living in. And that's where we can find the little nuances of the things that actually work for us. So that's one big myth. Yeah.
So it seems that we are in this field of positive psychology, and we have come across many people who are thinking that happiness as what you say, that they are not, they're like shifting. If they put it as a goal, it's that shifting goalposts, right? Once they get somewhere, and then the goalposts keep moving, and so they keep on working hard to get it. By the end of the day, they realize they're just chasing something blindly. And on that note, I know that this is what we do, but I want to hear your perspective. Like, what does happiness mean to you?
Yeah, to me, the definition of happiness can be summarized into this. Happiness is daring to truly live. Another myth about happiness is that it's all about emoji happy. Like, when I'm happy, I'm always smiling. And no doubt I smile a lot lah. But there are also times that I don't smile. There are also times that I'm angry. There are also times that I'm sad. And therefore happiness, and if you do work in happiness, doesn't mean that you're always happy. I'm just a human being trying to be on this journey. That's how I always see it. And that's why I came to this definition, that happiness is daring to try, daring to push against boundaries and conventions in trying to find yourself and trying to find out what this journey is. You have to have the courage. And then truly means to be authentic to who you are. One of the things that I think is the hardest to overcome is trying to be authentic in this world where people are expecting you to be like this, like this, like this. And as a woman, you expect you to be a career person, expect you to be a great mother, expect you to be a fantastic business owner, blah, blah, blah. But deep down at the end of the day, it's who you are inside that I think really matters. So being true to yourself, being able to come on screen and be who I am, the same as off the screen, right? There's a kind of freedom associated with that. That's very hard to describe simply as just happiness. I think it's deeper than that. And then the last part is live. Are we really living this life? I think it's Friedrich Nietzsche who said, what if this was the second time we were living our lives? Would we do it the same way? And there are many people that I speak to who are trapped by so many limiting beliefs, so many narratives that they feel they have to live up to, that they're not living. They're just going through the motion of this life. And I think to myself, wow, but we are living it for the second time. We have been given this opportunity and this chance. And are we actually going out there to grab this life or not?
Yeah. I mean, it seems that many people are stuck with their narratives, right? And these narratives has been primed in them by society, by the parents, by the world. And somehow they need to live up to that narratives and playing out their stories. And speaking about narratives, we talk about mindset. So what do you have to strip from your life to become happy or happier, to achieve your goals as a mother, as a businesswoman, and also as a person, as a change maker? I'm very keen on this.
Yeah, I think this is also another myth that happiness is all about building. And in positive psychology, we say we don't want to have the old mental model of looking at deficits and fixing them. We want to build. We want to look forward into the future. And while I think that's really valuable, like counting your blessings, being grateful, building your strengths, I think there's also value in letting go. And by letting go, I mean, looking back at the things that are holding you back, whether it's your beliefs, whether it's past baggage, whether it's trapping narratives, can we let this go? Because, just like a hot air balloon, right? If a hot air balloon is to soar and to fly into the sky, but it's still tethered to the ground with all those strings, then how high can it fly? And how much can we truly live? Yeah, so to me, but it's not easy. So many people say, wow, I'm going to be happy. That is a very fun and pleasant journey. Yeah, yes, some part of it is really great, but it doesn't come without challenge. So in trying to let go of past things, or let's say trying to heal a friendship that could potentially have broken, you have to do the work, right? You have to go through processes of forgiveness, for example. You have to go through a process where you admit that you made a mistake, that you take responsibility. And those parts may not feel very good, but the end outcome is that, hey, you let go of something, and that frees up space in your life to be able to pursue things that can really bring you that sense of living, and that sense of joy, and that sense of happiness that you want, right? So it's like planting, right? Something, if there are a lot of weeds and you don't take them away, and how do you plant the seeds? Or even if you plant the seeds, the weeds are going to be competing with the seeds for growing, you know. So yeah, to me, that's one thing that's also a myth.
So coming back to you, the part of, I mean, you went through a transformation journey on your own. Could you share with us a time in your life that you experienced a setback, and how do you turn, and what have you learned from it?
Time in my life, yeah, I think stepping out to run your own business is a something you cannot anticipate. And you know, I didn't come from a business background. I don't have anybody in my family running a business, but I was just driven from within about this passion for positive psychology. And somehow I knew that I have to do it. And so when I stepped out, I think the first few years were very, very challenging. You know, and I remember in like, was it the second year or something like that? I had lined up quite a few deals with potential clients, and they were sharing with me, okay, you know, okay, I accept your proposal. And if you look at the total number of those deals, it was about 20K. And for a new business owner, 20K is a lot of money, right? And you know, you get deals and you're very excited. And I remember waking up one day, and I received 4 emails all in a row and said, "Dear Sha-En, sorry, we can't go through with this. Dear Sha-En, sorry, we can't do this. Dear Sha-En, boss say cannot prove, we can't do this." And I remember looking at it and thinking like, what happened overnight? Did I do something? You know?
Wait, the 4 emails came in the same day?
Yeah, I don't know what happened that day. But I remember staring at it like in disbelief. Like, seriously? I thought these were deals that were going to go through. And maybe it was a wrong assumption to make, but I remember thinking I'm screwed. Because 20,000 could be, you know, next few months' earnings, right? So I sat there, I wallowed. And then I guess I remembered a mentor who shared with me, you know, whenever there's setbacks, it's the person who takes action that will turn the setback into an opportunity. So I said, okay, so what action can I take? So I said, since I received the rejection via emails, I'm going to send out a heck load of emails. And, you know, so I took out all my business cards. At the time, business cards are still very in fashion. And now everything's virtual. So I took out stacks of business cards. I went through all my contacts and I just wrote, I think must have been 40 emails that day. You know, hi, this is Sha-En. Oh, we met at this day. Hey, would you like to blah, 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 collaborate? Hey, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then I received back about 20 emails, some agreeing to meet for coffee, for networking. And to cut long story short, from the 20 emails came deals, you know, which kind of made up for the loss. So I think it was just a moment for me to realize that, oh, you mean that's how you do it? But it was also interesting, like that what my mentor said had proven true. That if we just sit there and wallow and curse that the world is bad to you, even all your hard work, and you don't do anything, then how do you move forward? How do you bounce back from challenge? Right? How do you be resilient? Yeah, but that was like a real true life case lah.
Thanks for sharing that. It seems that this setback has taught you and give you new skills for you to move forward. Yeah, and that's lovely.
Yeah.
And talking about, apart from work, do you have an experience that is related to overcoming pain and suffering and is connected to your mission of happiness?
Yeah, in 2016, I had just left my position at Yale and US College, where I was the wellness director, looking over the well-being of the students. And students there live on campus. And yeah, I think 2 months after I left, I had received a phone call informing me that one of my students had taken his life. Yeah, and this was a student that I had worked with very closely. And I knew his history. And honestly, when I left, I was really worried about his well-being and his safety. But you know, when you leave a place, right, you have to find ways to leave. You cannot just leave physically, but not emotionally, right? So I kept in touch with him briefly and things like that. So I guess, yeah, it came as it was really a huge shock to hear and get that phone call. Yeah. So I think it also reminded me, I think I was in denial for a very long time, because it was like, are you really? I keep telling myself, no, it's not true. And even as I was going through, I went to the wake and I looked at him in the coffin. I was like, huh? Did you actually do this? But I think the part that I think many people will not know is that when you have journeyed with somebody and you know someone from the inside, not just from the outside, the pain is so much more. Because you know why. Although I don't know the exact reasons why, I kind of know why. Does it sound weird?
No.
Yeah, it's like you have an insight into this person that nobody else has except himself. And so when something like that's happened and everybody's asking why, I kind of know why. Not the exact reason, but I kind of know why. Yeah, and part of me was like, oh, why? But a part of me is like, I know it's painful. It was very painful for him, right? And from what we understand about suicide is that nobody wants to die. They just want the pain to end. And given the pain that is going through, that's why I can say I can understand why. Yeah. So
I think it's a big challenge at many different places right now, right? We're talking about suicides and giving the pervasiveness of mental health issues and crisis. We do see a spike in suicide in these times. And on the same note, I know that this is connected to your mission of happiness. It also reminded me of a story that I experienced in my school, whereby we had a student that also has taken her life. And it was at the start of when I started this podcast, and I was thinking of giving it up because it was so difficult to run a podcast. And then when I went back to school, then received news that one of the students actually took her life, and it prompted me to carry on together. This is something that we have to do, right? Yeah, to continue to be at the forefront of championing well-being, resilience, and showing that there is another way.
Yeah, I think so much of the work that we do in positive psychology is preventative. It's so much harder to work at the intervention end of things because resources need to be like 3 times more. The person is in a state that requires a lot more undoing and therapy. At the prevention stage, where people are feeling okay, that's the best time in which we can so-called intervene, right? And share. Yeah, and like you, I think it was only a year later that I realized, his death has got to mean something, right? It cannot just be like that in vain. And even though I never went back to the college per se, I told myself, if I'm doing this, I better do it like legit 150%. Because
150%.
not that before that it's not legit, but it was more like, it was a passion, but now it's like passion with a deep sense of purpose. It's like, if how many people can we help, and how many people can we impact to see that life is worth living, that they can actually take steps for themselves, and if they do, I'm not saying that we're here to prevent suicides. It's more of, can we empower people to recognize that they can start to become aware of when things are sliding. They can take action when they're start to feel early signs of feeling bad. They can ask for help. How do we empower and educate people that all this is not weakness, right? This is just you taking agency for your life, which, ironically, many of us give up sometimes, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, definitely now when I look back on 2016 and what happened, I don't feel the pain anymore. I think it's more like, okay, we are going to do something good about this. Yeah.
And all this boils down to having the ability to be resilient. And being resilient is a lot about having the tenacity, and the ability to ask for help, right? As you say, that being able to reach out and not to see this sort of suffering as some form of embarrassment or weaknesses,
Mm.
and putting themselves in a mental prison. And when we talk about suffering, and or what would you give as advice for those people who are suffering or they are still in a bad place?
Mm. I think people in a bad place normally spend a lot of time ruminating. Ruminating means allowing the bad thoughts to go round and round and round. And if you are there, then I would say, number one, get it out of your head, because it's taking up a lot of mind space. So if you can, either talk to someone or have a piece of paper where you can just write it all down, because number one, it will give you perspective and a little bit more clarity when the clutter is out of your head, or you know. The second part is, I think it's a good time to, I don't think you should rush into fixing. Many people want to get out of the bad things, therefore they want to fix. And maybe the people around them want them to be fixed. But I think it's also a good time to ask yourself, how is it you're here now? And it's not blaming. It's not to be said with blaming, but ask yourself, what has led up to this? And be really honest. And maybe that honesty is very painful. But with that honesty, then I think that's where we can begin to start thinking about ways to get out of it. Yeah, and I think for me that is really how, like with the first story, how I got out of it, and I realized, it ended up like this because of X, X, X. And it's horrible to look in the mirror and recognize that you did all that. Yeah, but okay, you did it. But it's in the past, isn't it? The past has led you to where you are, and you just look back and kind of deconstruct how it ended up here. Yeah, and say, okay, but I don't want the past to don't want the past to be my present anymore. And of course, it's not going to happen in one day and overnight, right? It takes time, it's a process. So go easy on yourself, have a bit of compassion, and recognize that, everybody goes through these moments. And remember not to compare yourself to someone else and say, how come that person walking down the street looks so happy? Right? Because we don't know, right? We don't know what they're going through. And just like people may not know what you're going through, then try not to beat yourself up too much about it. When you have a negative thought, get it down, get it out of your system. Yeah, be kind to yourself. We always say the worst things to ourselves, isn't it? When we're down. It's like already down, then still go and take the rotan and whack yourself for what? Or whatever it is, what is that, ladle, or knock yourself on the head, or dig the hole,
Yeah, digging a hole deeper, right? I like the part when you talk about being authentic and being honest with your own feelings, right? And it comes back to the point that you brought up earlier of being brave enough to face the things that we need to face. But on one note, we may want to look for quick fixes or ways to get ourselves out from a negative event. What you shared was good about writing your thoughts out so that we could look at it. And then the other part is really whereby sometimes it's okay for us to be in a bad place, and we give ourselves permission to be in a bad place, to have that space for us to feel bad. But of course, we do not want to dwell in it, like in terms of rumination, how the way you say it, keep on lashing ourselves, beating ourselves even deeper. Yeah. So taking that one small step at a time is important. Yeah. And I know that you've been doing this, helping people to overcome challenges. Could you share one daily habit or practice that contributes to your own personal well-being? Yeah, you could share more than one, definitely. What can we learn from you in terms of what do you do for your daily well-being development?
I think the one thing that is, I reflect every day, and in my reflection, I will ask myself a few questions. One is gratitude, of course. I will ask myself, what is something that has gone well today that I can be grateful for? That's very grounding as a practice and allows me to go to bed more easy as well. And sometimes it's the small things, like I'm grateful that today's so cooling. Just the small, simple things to remind me that we can't take these things for granted, and then I also ask myself, like, what is one thing a small win that I can celebrate today? And it could be like I woke up before my alarm. Again, I want to emphasize small wins. I think sometimes we wait too long to celebrate. We hold ourselves to such high expectations that it takes, we lose motivation as we're trying to get there. So today, like, I think the small win is that, yeah, I managed to get up before my alarm. That's the truth, actually. And I'm not a person who needs like to snooze. Yeah, so I asked myself, what's a small win, right? And then in my reflection, I asked myself, how can I be better tomorrow? Because I have this mantra, and my mantra is very simple: be better than you are yesterday. Just be better, whatever it is. Like, so if I was short-tempered today, like, I shot my fuse or whatever, which happens to all of us, and I said, okay, well, what led to it? Oh, it was because of this. Okay, you were too tired. Okay, so be better means maybe sleep earlier. Be better, maybe take a breath before shouting. Don't shout at all. Whatever lah. But I think that honesty has to be there. Like, there's no point in lying to yourself, because lying to yourself just, I mean, how can you make strides forward if you're always lying to yourself? Yeah, so yeah, just say be better, whatever that is. And it's all these small things, and I think 积少成多, right? In Chinese they say, or the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It's Laozi. Yeah, so I like that very much, because it means that every single one of us can just take small things every day. And when we look back after 2 months, 3 months, we can actually say, wow, hey, we got here, by our own action. And I think that's very powerful.
Yeah. What struck me hard when was you talk about we tend to wait very long, too long for celebrations to happen. We delay not just gratification, but also delay good things, right, from happening.
Yeah.
Like that part, Sha-En, that we should celebrate often, and especially these small little wins. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Many people dismiss these small wins. They say, yeah, nothing much. Yeah, but if we get into a habit of doing that, then what is much? How do we then measure? And then we create a culture within ourselves that doesn't celebrate things that we actually put in effort for. Which in times like these, this is the time when you need to bring out this strategy like over and over again, right? Because everything is so challenging. Things are not going to be the same way as they were. And those wins will be harder to come by if you're waiting for the traditional way of understanding what wins look like. And in these times we can say, yeah, me being able to arrive on time and turn on the Zoom, win. Me being able to set up this green screen behind, win. And you feel good, because these are true things, right? It's not fake, right? So and the more we can accumulate these wins, then we realize, yeah, it's us. We did this, not someone else. And we didn't have to wait for our boss to tell us, you win, because I already won.
That's a good one.
A more lighthearted take on it.
Yeah. So, Sha-En, I know that you've been doing a lot of good work on with happiness scientists, and could you kindly share a little bit more about what happiness scientists is aim to do, how happiness scientists is helping organizations to transform?
Yeah, so what we do is that, we do a lot of training, and now, of course, in the COVID time, we're talking about virtual training, working with leaders, working with employees, to, number one, manage stress. I think one of the biggest demands we've had is, can you just teach us how to manage all these competing demands? How do we have a team that is united and strong in their relationships? So we work on things like purpose, engagement, teaching them how to connect with a bit of fun, and it may seem very light-hearted, but these are the little things every day that can bring the team closer. How do you lead in times of crisis? How do you stay steady so that you as a leader can role model the way forward? What is your communication like to your team members when there are challenges? Do you say, 笑料, I 照料, and to translate that, it's like, wow, die. I'm going, bye, take care of yourself. Is that your communication? Or is your communication, in other words, is it self-centered and selfish? Or is it compassionate and empathetic? So we teach the leaders how to demonstrate this empathetic communication, how to listen to the employees to find out what needs and what challenges they're facing, those kind of conversations. Yeah, then hopefully as we work on the individuals and the teams, then as a whole organization, we help to shift the culture. Yeah.
Great. So how could people reach you if they want more information? Is there a website or a place they can look you up?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to www.happinessscientists, that's plural.com. Yeah, and you can go to the contact page and leave us an email. Yeah, check out what we've been doing, what we've been up to.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. I am very grateful for you to be here today. And I think there's some quick takeaways that happened in this conversation. Is what stood out to me was you talk about how authenticity and honesty is important and being brave in doing so. And the other part of it was about forgiveness. And if we could learn how to forgive ourselves, I think this is also a big lesson, right? And being brave, it takes courage to seek for forgiveness and to forgive oneself. And also the small wins that we ought to celebrate our small wins in life and permission ourselves to be happy, right? Yeah. These times. And thank you, Sha-En.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much.